Jesus, thank you that you are a miracle worker. Thank you that that is what you are known for. Thank you that actually where there is no way, sometimes that we reach that point in lives, there is no way, but you have made a way that is, that at times we reach in our lives where we think, where do I go from here? But Jesus, you are always there. It says you're always just waiting for us to turn to you. You're always ready to receive us. And God, that's what our testimony, everyone here that knows you, that is our story. If you want to take your seats. What we're going to do now is we've got another testimony actually. Laura shared that she works for an organisation called Sat7, which is a satellite channel that reaches to the Middle East, into the Middle East, and she wanted to share another testimony, and Felicity's going to come up. It's going to be on the screen, and there is subtitles there, but just for ease for people, because some people's eyesight, I know mine, if I'm at the back, can't always. So Flick's going to read out the transcript as the lady speaks, just to make that more accessible for everyone and for the children as well. But we're just going to hear another very brief story of someone who has reached out to Jesus in, as I say, in countries where the opportunities for that are very limited. So I'll just pass over to her.
So, an Afghan viewer living in Turkey. I think it was God's will for me to watch that TV channel. I've been watching satellite channels for a long time, but I've never noticed that channel before. One day when I went home, I felt very frustrated. I started asking, where is God? Why is he always close to the rich and hypocrites? I could not find God and I was upset. That same day I came across this Christian satellite channel. I was curious what they were talking about. Back then, I used to know Jesus as a great prophet. I did not know that Jesus is Lord, because in Islamic countries, they do not let us learn about other beliefs. I, as an illiterate person, could not understand many things. I started watching the channel every day for a week. I discovered that all I have ever wanted is in Christianity, such as not lying, forgiveness, and many other things. I heard and watched them in this Christian TV channel. After 1 month of watching the channel, I became a believer. I praise the Lord for becoming a Christian and my salvation. They have threatened us that they will cut us into pieces and they will send our bodies back to Afghanistan. My response was, I don't mind, because one day I'm going to die one way or another. I received many threats, even from my family. Until this day, people are not nice to me. But deep down in my heart, I have joy, and I always pray that all these people will be saved too. Christianity brings no war and no misery to people for them to use these words against us. The Lord is always with me and he protects me. He has given me peace I have never had before. I used to feel lonely when I lost my parents from a young age. Now I am in a foreign country. I do not feel lonely because God is with me and my God is alive. I pray for the redemption and freedom of Afghan women because they are really suffering. God can take away their pain, deliver peace to their hearts. I always pray for them to be saved. I cannot describe the great feeling of having God in my life. It is like He is right here on earth and talking to me. Now that I look back at my life, I was not really living. I was in darkness and misery. I would encourage my people to find out about Christianity and see it is not a religion but a relationship with God. There is nothing bad in this relationship, and you always feel God's peace, protection, presence, and you don't feel lonely because you know that God is always with you.
Thank you, Felicity. Yeah, so that's just another story, and similar to the one Laura read earlier, of someone whose life they've met with Jesus. And Jesus has been doing that and changing lives for 2,000 years across all sorts of different cultures and different backgrounds. And even yesterday I was having breakfast with someone. I'd only met them for the first time, but he was telling me about his story out of addiction and into knowing Jesus. Jesus' birth 2,000 years ago was with this message that he would be good news to all people. And that good news wasn't a set of rules, it wasn't some new product or gadget that's going to change your life. It was a person, Jesus. It was good news to us, humanity, that whatever your background is, whether you're religious or you're not religious, God was going to interact with us personally, and it was through his Son that he sent Jesus. And no one would be surprised to hear that we need relationships, and it shouldn't really then surprise us that actually God also wants a relationship with us. It's in his heart that he wants that. And that's what Christianity is about. It's about a relationship with God through Jesus. Everything else flows from that. And if you miss that about Christianity, if you miss that it's about a relationship, then you end up with dead religion. And you miss the whole point of it. And for a few minutes I'm going to look at an example from the Bible, a story of Jesus meeting with someone and how that relationship starts with him. And it's from John 1. But what May also is going to do, is I'll pass some paper over, is she's got a little activity for the kids as well. If they want to come over to her, she will explain that. A little activity as we speak. But first of all, we're going to do the story, and you may also want to see this. I've primed some people, actors. There should be 3 of you. I'm hoping I've not spoken to more than 3. So if you have been spoken to be an actor, come on up. And we're going to transport ourselves 2,000 years and across the seas to Israel and to, and I've got some just a little bit of an outfit. So Reese, come on up as well. I'm not sure which will fit. I think perhaps you could go with that one. It's a lovely little outfit. And then perhaps you could have the dressing gown. Obviously, I don't know what it was about the first century and everyone walking around in dressing gowns, and you might get into that, Reese. It's a slightly snugger fit, but hopefully you'll be able to get into that. And we decided, I don't know anyone who's been to our events, but know that Reese, when he comes to our events, he's often played the baddie. But there's been some concerns that he's getting typecast as the baddie. So today we've given him the goodie, like the goodie. So he is going to be Jesus for me today. So that's for you, Jesus. And then you could be Nathaniel, if you were. The man called Nathaniel is going to meet Jesus. And then Steve, if you could be Philip. And at the top of your sheets, you might have a word that just describes to get you into the kind of spirit of things. What we'll do is we'll just start this. I'm the narrator. So you can find this story. It's in John 1. It's one of the accounts of Jesus' life. You two guys, if you're happy to share a mic. So, and me and Steve will. So it starts like this. The next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him,
"Follow me."
Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and he told him,
"We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph."
"Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?"
"Come and see."
When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him,
"Here truly is an Israelite, in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree, before Philip called you."
"Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel."
"You believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? you will see greater things than that.
He then added,
Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man.
Thank you very much. We'll give them a round of applause. Brilliant, thank you. So we've got this story, thank you gentlemen, of an encounter with Jesus. And it's one, as I say, that starts at the point in Jesus' where he started to go a bit public, he started to get a bit of a following. And people have started to trust Jesus a bit, and they started to follow him and learn from him. Jesus is what he's saying to them, he's inviting these people into a relationship with him. That's what he's doing. And we get a glimpse of how Jesus shows himself to people. It's personal. There are other encounters, and each one is deeply personal. That's how we get a relationship with anyone. We get to know them, and they get to know us. And I mean more than knowing about someone. Like Taylor Swift, you might know about Taylor Swift if you're a Swiftie, but that's not the same as actually knowing her. Yeah, exactly. But do you know her? That's the point. We know about someone, but it's not the same as a relationship where you actually know them, where you spend time with them, where you have a personal connection with them. But it doesn't start like that for Nathaniel in this story either. It starts with knowing about them. If you think about our little bingo thing we did, we know a few facts. We might know the person we've never spoken to before, and we know their name. We might know something about them. I know for me that just thinking, I'm quite curious to know all these near-miss stories, and I'd like to know a little bit more about them, about what was that story you had where you nearly died or whatever. So, yeah, but we know about them, and we know a little bit, and that's how it starts for Nathaniel. And if we look what happens again, Philip, who's in the story, he already knows Jesus, and he tells Nathaniel about him, and that's what we saw in the video. We saw the case where the 7 people were telling their stories about how they'd met with Jesus. And that's how the lady found out about it. Shaah, that's how she found out from watching it. And we don't know much about Nathaniel, but what we know about him is that his initial reaction to Jesus was that he was a skeptic. And to be honest, I quite like that about him. I'm a bit of a sort of skeptic myself. My kids would say I'm quite cynical often, and I'm sort of always battling that urges. I am one of those people that if I see a glass and it's that half full, half empty, I'm not just half empty, I'm half empty, and someone has spat in the bit that I've got. But I'm trying to curb that. But I don't find putting my trust in people very easy. And I like that about Nathaniel. He's kind of curious. He says, I don't know about Jesus. I'm not sure he's the real deal. He's not ready to take things at face value. But like I said, sometimes our scepticism, it can affect us, and it can make us make some assumptions about people. And that's what happens with Philip. In the story, he hears that Jesus is from this place called Nazareth. And just that... Nazareth, how could anything good come from Nazareth? It's obviously got a bit of a reputation. It's a nothing place. It's a bit of a backwater. It's a place, I want you to imagine in your mind that sort of place where you would said, nothing good comes out of there. It's that kind of a place. Perhaps you can think also of a time when you've made some assumptions. You've maybe seen someone or initially met them, and you've made some assumptions about them, and then you find out that later down the line that you've got that wrong. We've all got those prejudices, and Nathaniel in this story, he's no different. And he doesn't know anything about Jesus at this point apart from where he's from. And either what he's heard or what he knows about that Nazareth, he doesn't like. So his first reaction is we make assumptions about things, and there's a tendency which we bring those things in and we make a judgment on them, and he writes Jesus off. But he makes a good next decision, and this is a good decision. He doesn't rely on his prejudices or his assumptions, and he goes and he finds out for himself. He doesn't have any personal knowledge of Jesus, but the excitement of this friend or relative that Philip is, is enough for him, and he's humble enough to say, and he's open-minded enough to check out Jesus for himself. Remember Shaah in the video, who'd been told, I don't know if you remember the bit in the video, she says, I was told by my religious leaders that Jesus was a prophet. But she took the next step. When she stumbled on this Sat7 channel, she took the next step to find out for herself. And it took someone to communicate with her something they knew of Jesus. Those people that set up Sat7. It was set up by a guy, I think it was in the 80s. I'm looking at Laura. It was in 96, was it? In the 90s. And he took the decision to set up a TV channel for someone. I mean, a TV station, not just a channel, not just popping something up on YouTube, which is actually quite easy. He set up like studios, a network to be able to make sure he could broadcast this. Now, you've got to be pretty committed and pretty into someone to set up a channel to them. I mean, imagine that. I was so into Jonathan and what Jonathan had to say that I go to all that trouble to set up a TV channel devoted to the Colemans. But he did that. And people like Laura, they work for them. And Laura doesn't work just because she wants to earn a living with them. She does it because she loves Jesus and she wants others to know about him. So Nathaniel, he goes to find out for himself and he seeks out more. But Jesus finds out about Nathaniel in a very different way. As Nathaniel approaches Jesus, Jesus immediately knows something about Nathaniel. And it's interesting what he says. He doesn't call him out for being this cynic or this prejudiced view of what Jesus is like, or all the bad stuff in his life. He doesn't point that out. He doesn't. Some people think that's all that God cares about, that they see in their mind, their prejudices, that God is some sort of finger-wagging God who's just looking out for the bad stuff. But the God of the Bible isn't like that. He's motivated by love. And actually, what Jesus does when he first meets Nathaniel is he says, look, you're an honest man. You're a genuine seeker. Those are the words he says to him. Look, I can see in you, you something about you, you genuinely want to know. That's what he's saying to him. And he's praising him for it. He says, you've got an honest heart and you really want to know. And Nathaniel's a bit taken aback by this, but as I say, he might think, oh, maybe that's a lucky guess. Maybe he's just, being complimentary or whatever. But it gets him curious, and Nathaniel hangs around and he says, how do you know? How do you know me? And then Jesus follows it up with this kind of supernatural knowledge of Nathaniel sitting under a fig tree. And we really don't know, weirdly in this story, we don't know what Nathaniel was doing under a fig tree. We don't know whether it was good or bad, what he was doing. But what we do know about it is, for some reason, this witness of what he's seen, what Jesus knows about him, is so important that it does change things for Nathaniel. It completely turns it around for him. So we've got to imagine it's a really significant thing. There are some people that have speculated what's going on there, and some people think he might have been reading the Bible. There is some reasons behind that. But like I said, there's something about that moment that makes it significant. It might be that it was a moment when he was feeling really shameful. It might have been a moment when he was feeling really desperate. But like I said, I think it was dramatic. And I'm guessing it wasn't he was just picking figs, because that would have been a good guess. But I think something was going on there. And this revelation that he gets of Jesus, that Jesus knows him, knows the kind of person he is, knows the detail of his life that he couldn't know in the natural, changes his whole view of Jesus. It seems quite astonishing, this turnaround for this guy. And in one sense, it's dramatic. The next thing that Nathaniel says, and other early followers of Jesus, they start saying, they start saying things like, that he's the Son of God. And they start doing things that are quite radical. So they leave behind their businesses and their homes, and they start following him around. And they start learning from him, and they start trusting him, and they start growing in this relationship. And that's really the only way you can know anyone, isn't it? You've got to spend time with them day to day. You've got to be listening to them. You've got to be really paying attention to about them. But it's also fair to say at this point that although it looks like Nathaniel has this revelation, and he does, of who Jesus is, when he says, you're the king and you're the Son of God, it's also fair to say that the disciples, the early followers of Jesus, also spent the next 3 years stumbling over who Jesus was. So they made mistakes with him. Plenty of times they seemed confused about who he was, what he was doing. They misunderstood Jesus in situations that they found themselves. But there was one thing they kept on doing. So even though they had doubts, even though they were confused, even though they messed up time and time again, the one thing they kept doing was what? Walking with Jesus. They kept on following Jesus. They kept on growing and they kept on knowing him. They didn't miss the one important fact that I said at the start, which is that Jesus desires relationship above everything else. That's what he wants. And that's what and then right at the end, and this is right at the end of the story, this is the last sort of bit of it, Jesus then says this really quite strange to us kind of statement, which is this: very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. And it is a bit of a weird statement, but actually it has a lot of meaning behind it, and it's kind of, you can dig into it a bit more because it actually references an earlier part of the Bible. But Jesus is basically saying, what you've got here, when you see me, what you've got, the stuff you're going to know about me, the stuff you're going to see about me is heavenly stuff. It's divine. It's stuff of God. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, right now, you carry on walking with me and you're going to experience the stuff of God, both through me in Jesus, but also in the things that you will also then see happen around you. And actually, what we see happen about 3 years later, near the end of Jesus' life, he's having another conversation with these followers, these disciples of his. And one of them, Philip, the Philip in the story actually, he says to him, show us what God is like. You know, this is 3 years later and he's still like not quite getting it. And Jesus says to him, if you have seen me, then you have seen the Father. You have seen God. To know Jesus is to know God. Not stuff about God, but to actually know God himself, to have relationship with him. Nathaniel, despite all of his doubts, was genuinely searching for God. The lady in the video, Shaah, who was looking for a relationship with God, and what she'd experienced before was just rules and religion and hypocrisy, she said. But what she wanted was to know that she mattered to God, that he knew her, that he knew her like Nathaniel was under the fig tree, that he knew everything about her. And we all want to be known, we all want to be loved, for people to appreciate stuff in us, for people to value who we are as people. We want to know that we matter. And God sees stuff like that. But it's also true to say that being known, being really known, is also pretty scary. People wouldn't love me or like me if they knew what I was really like. I've messed up too badly, and I'm still messing up. See, God sees all that stuff too. And yet he still says to us, come to me as you are. See, living with someone's a bit like that, actually. When I first got together with Flick, my wife, when we first started living together, she was my biggest fan. She was always, she's a great encourager, my wife. And she's always praising me and saying, you're great at this, you're good at that, whatever. But at the same time, when you start living with anyone, you realise that they've also got some annoying habits. And they're not always the most cheerful person. They can be a bit grumpy at different points in the day. And it's pretty amazing when someone knows you like that. They know your bad stuff and they still love you anyway. But as amazing as Felicity is, right? She doesn't know everything about me. She doesn't know all of my thoughts. She's not with me in every experience that I experience. She's not there to process and know about my every worry or anxiety. She doesn't know about my future or what the purpose of my life is. She just doesn't know that stuff, all of it. No human being can do that. And also, it's true to say that even with the most special person that you might know or have in your life, that actually there is a point when you get separated. My parents were married for over 50 years and then my mum passed away last year. So no human can be everything and always be with you all of the time. Only an all-knowing and loving God can do that. The one that sees and knows all. Like Shaah in the video said, I know, she said it, didn't she? I know God is always with me. Having hope even in the shadow of death. She said it, I risk getting cut up, was what she said. And she says, I'm not afraid of death. I mean, I thought it was slightly unusual that she smiled and laughed at that point in the video when she said, even death doesn't separate. But there's a truth to that as a Christian. There's a truth to know that we have a hope beyond death. And it starts with a Nathaniel mindset, one that says, I'm full of questions and I'm responding open-mindedly to come and see for myself. Christianity spreads by those Philip moments. I know this guy Jesus and I want you to know about him too. All of us who know Jesus want others truly know him, want others to know him too. We all share stuff we love about what we love. I mean, I've been, in my household, I've been told about the Taylor Swift album and it's been talked about, whatever. And the reason it's been talked about is because someone in my household, I'm not naming who it is, loves it. But, you know, if a new place in town opens up in Bromsgrove and it's a really nice place to eat, what do? We go and tell someone. We say, oh, you need to go there. So actually, what Philip does in this story is really natural to all of us. The things that we love, we share with others. And that's what Philip does in this story. I've met this guy Jesus. You've got to come and meet him too. And that's what Christians have been doing for 2,000 years. Remember, relationship is everything. Knowing someone in a journey is walking with them, it's getting to know them. All relationships grow through the time we spend with them. Maybe we've turned that relationship, for some of us that know Jesus, into more being about an outward form of going through the motions. But we've been missing the centre. It's easy to do that. Even in close relationships, we end up taking them for granted. We don't invest time in them. To us, Jesus would say, just come to me. And maybe we've never thought about Christianity being about knowing a person, like Shaah said. Perhaps this has opened our mind and our hearts to think, just perhaps, the God who knows and sees us wants us to know him. To us, Jesus would say, come and see for yourself. And maybe we've got a lot of assumptions and a lot of prejudices of who Jesus is, but we've never investigated those for ourselves. Perhaps that's our next step. Maybe what stops us is our knowledge of ourselves. Maybe we think, well, the only idea I've got of God is of this finger-wagging God, this telling off God, not this God that knows and sees, who loves us in spite of our flaws, who sent his Son to die for us. Again, Jesus would say to you, come as you are, because I know you. Jesus wants us to know him, and he sees us and he knows us, the good, the bad and the ugly. And he loves us anyway. And he invites us, all of us, to come and see for ourselves. We can come with doubts, we can come with questions, but journey with him is what he's saying. Notice in this story that the one thing he doesn't do, Jesus at this point doesn't say to Nathaniel, he doesn't say, I'm demanding obedience from you. What he says is, just walk with me. Learn from me. Get to know me. Trust me and come and see. Jesus can handle us as we are. And he does know us better than we know ourselves. And I'm going to finish now. We're finished. What I want us to do, though, is to just for just a minute, just close your eyes. And I know the kids are having fun and all the rest of it, but I just want you to just close your eyes if you're happy to. And I'm just going to read a passage that's quite familiar probably to some of us, but I'm going to read it in a different sort of translation of it. And as I read it, I just want you to say, Jesus, where are you? Where are you? Are you real? Maybe that's where you're at. Maybe I don't know anything about you. Are you real? And for some of you, it's I've kind of missed the centre. I've kind of neglected you, Jesus. And I'm just going to read this. And it's from Matthew 11. So again, it's in the Bible, one of the accounts of Jesus. And this is Jesus speaking. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Just keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So Jesus, I just pray for us all now. Thank you that you are a God that wants relationship. And I pray for each of us as we go from this place that we take something of that. That actually, God, you're a God that knows us and you want relationship with us. And I just pray that if you don't know Jesus, I just invite you, if you don't know Jesus and you want to know more, then I just invite you, before you leave here, just come and speak to one of us. Come and speak to me, or come and speak to someone you know you came with. But I can honestly say, I would love to be able to tell you more about Jesus. I'm not here to bash him over the head, but I can honestly say for me that he has been he's the most unique person you will ever meet in your life, and you will never regret walking with him. And if you are someone who's neglected that, just gather with someone. If you're someone who feels like I'm missing the centre of that, you do know Jesus, you have met him, but you feel like you've just been ignoring him. Then again, just grab someone before you go and get them to just pray with you. Just pray that this week you'll spend time with him, you'll listen to him. Amen.